Welcome to this podcast episode brought to you by AGS Agriculture Global Solutions, your partner for better oil palm farming.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into the most dangerous diseases threatening your palms and how you can protect your yields and livelihood.
Yeah, it's a critical topic.
Register now on cropdrive.ai. Use the tool completely free of charge, no hidden fees, no conditions. CropDrive helps you improve your oil palm growing skills.
Absolutely.
Subscribe to our channel so you do not miss key oil palm best practice episodes.
So, where should we start today?
Well, imagine walking through your plot right now. The trunks of your palms look solid, the canopy looks green and healthy against the sky.
Right, everything was perfectly fine on the surface.
Exactly. But beneath the soil, or hiding out of sight up in the crown, there's this microscopic thief that's already compromised your future yield.
And that's the scary part, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
By the time you actually see the symptoms like a yellowing leaf, a rotting spear, or maybe a mushroom at the base, the battle is, well, it's often already lost.
Yeah, usually way too late.
Right. And that invisible war is what we're digging into today. Because diseases, they don't just kill trees. They're a massive threat to global production and economic
A
stability.
huge threat. Palm oil is such a massive engine of the global economy.
Oh, totally. Just to give you an idea of the scale, palm oil makes up 35.9% of the 209.62 million metric tons of global oilseed production.
That is a staggering amount of oil.
Right. And the heavy lifting is done by farmers like you. With Indonesia producing 57% and Malaysia 28% of the world's supply, when a disease hits, it directly strips away your yield and the quality of your oil.
It does. And to map out a real defense strategy for you, we're pulling from a really comprehensive study out of Malaysia from 2022.
Yeah, a really fascinating deep dive.
Right. So a team of scientists analyzed the current status of the most economically damaging oil palm diseases worldwide. They basically cataloged, what causes them, the specific symptoms, and most importantly, the actionable steps to fix them.
Which is exactly what we need to focus on.
Exactly. We're going to extract those findings so you know exactly how these pathogens operate on a mechanical level. Because if you understand how a disease attacks,
You know how to break its cycle.
precisely, you can actually fight back.
So, we should probably start at the literal foundation of the tree, right?
Yeah.
Roots and the lower stem.
Yeah, that's where the most structural damage happens.
Yeah, when I read the study's breakdown on basal stem rot, or BSR, it immediately reminded me of like a termite infestation in a wooden house.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right, because you walk around thinking everything is fine, but the internal load-bearing walls are just being completely hollowed out.
Yeah.
And by the time a wall visibly bows or cracks, the house is, well, it's already in danger of collapse.
Yeah, and BSR operates on that exact same principle of hidden structural destruction. It's a highly destructive mechanism.
What exactly is doing the destroying?
Well, BSR is caused by a white rot fungus, and it is the absolute most devastating disease in Southeast Asian plantations.
Wow, the worst ones.
The worst. The fungus basically survives by actively degrading the lignin inside the palm.
The lignin.
Yeah, you can think of lignin as the biological concrete of the plant. It's this tough, rigid material that gives the trunk its structural integrity.
Okay, so it's what keeps the tree standing.
Right. It allows the palm to stand tall against strong winds and, crucially, to hold the massive weight of those heavy, fresh fruit bunches.
Which are not light.
Not at all. And the fungus essentially dissolves this structural backbone just to feed itself.
Man, and the resulting damage to the harvest is brutal. The scientists in this 2022 study reported that BSR causes yield losses of over 40% across affected plots.
40%. That's devastating.
It is. And on an individual level, it can destroy up to 80% of a single palm's potential yield.
Which makes sense, right? If a palm loses its biological concrete, it just can't support the nutrient flow or the physical weight to produce fruit.
Right. So what does the farmer actually see?
Well, the physical symptoms are delayed indicators, unfortunately. A farmer might notice unopened spear leaves failing to emerge properly,
Okay.
or eventually the appearance of fruiting bodies. Those are those tough, mushroom-like growths right at the base of the trunk.
I've seen those. But the study says that's a bad sign, right?
A very bad sign. The grim reality is that when those mushrooms appear, the internal tissue of the palm is already half rotted. Once you hit that stage, the tree will likely die in just 6 to 12 months.
Which brings up a massive operational problem. If the visible symptoms only show up when the palm is essentially a ghost standing in the field, early detection feels kind of impossible.
It definitely used to be. Historically, to find this fungus before the mushrooms appeared, farmers had to rely on traditional laboratory protocols.
Right, taking core tissue samples.
Yeah, exactly. Drilling into the trunks, taking samples, and sending them to a lab to look for specific fungal markers.
But that sounds, doing that across a whole farm.
It's incredibly slow, it's labor-intensive, it's expensive, and frankly, it's completely impractical to do on a large scale across an entire plantation.
Huh.
You can't drill into every single palm every few months.
Right. So what's the alternative?
Well, the researchers highlight a shift toward remote sensing as the modern solution.
Okay, I want to dig into the mechanics of that because when I read it, it sounded a bit like science fiction.
It really does.
Like using drones or laser scanners from above to find a fungus eating the base of the trunk. How does looking at the canopy from the sky tell us what's happening all the way down at the roots?
It's all about how a plant responds to stress on an electromagnetic level.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So when the fungus attacks the lignin and the internal transport tissues at the base, the palm experiences this mild, early-stage water and nutrient stress.
Right, the plumbing's getting messed up.
Exactly. And long before the human eye can see the leaves turning yellow or wilting, the actual cellular structure of those leaves changes.
Interesting.
So remote sensing uses specialized cameras, often mounted on drones, that capture light beyond human vision, like near infrared. And the stressed canopy reflects this light entirely differently than a healthy canopy.
So the drone is essentially picking up a distress signal from the leaves.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Like, the lack of water changes the leaf's reflective signature, flagging the tree as infected way before the rot becomes terminal.
Right. The algorithm processes that light reflection and gives the farmer a highly precise map showing exactly which trees are secretly struggling.
That's incredible.
It requires a fraction of the labor of physical sampling, and it allows you to target your interventions like soil mounding or specific nutrient applications to save the tree while there's still time.
Now, for a smallholder farmer, buying specialized multispectral drones might not be feasible.
No, probably not.
But this is where partnering with local farming co-ops becomes vital. Like, if a co-op pools its resources to hire a drone service once or twice a year, the entire community can get eyes in the sky.
Exactly. It's just the strategy from reacting to dead trees to proactively managing stressed ones.
Wow. Okay, so that's the wood.
Yeah, finding the disease early is the first layer of defense. But the battlefield is complex. BSR attacks the physical wood, but another major threat operates entirely underground.
Right, because remote sensing is great when the canopy eventually shows stress. But what if the threat is fundamentally altering the plumbing from the soil up?
That brings us to our second pathogen, Fusarium wilt.
So we're moving from a fungal rot that eats wood to a soil-borne attack that chokes the tree from the inside.
Right. Fusarium wilt is caused by a soil-borne fungus, and instead of eating the structural lignin, it infects the roots and travels upward, colonizing the xylem.
And the xylem is the...
It's the network of microscopic tubes that pull water and nutrients from the soil up to the leaves.
Man, it's like pouring fast-drying concrete down a sink drain. The plant is desperately trying to pump water up from the soil, but the pipes are completely sealed off from the inside.
Yeah, the plumbing is utterly useless.
So what happens to the tree?
The plant experiences catastrophic water stress. The symptoms really reflect a tree that is suffocating and dying of thirst. The crown leaves begin to turn a sickly yellow, and the older leaves at the bottom simply dry out, snap, and hang down against the trunk.
That sounds awful.
It is. The study points out the massive devastation this disease causes, particularly in Africa, where some areas have seen up to 70% mortality.
70%.
Yeah. And it's also an emerging severe threat to plantations in Latin America.
Okay, I have to push back here on the solutions the study offers, though, because something isn't adding up for me.
Okay, what's that?
Well, the sources explicitly state that Fusarium spores are incredibly hardy, right? They can survive dormant in the dirt and plant debris for years.
Yes, very resilient spores.
So if the fungus is underground in the soil, how does changing your surface cover crop do anything. I mean, the fungus is still sitting right there beneath the roots.
It sounds contradictory, right? But it comes down to the microscopic warfare happening in the soil microbiome.
Microscopic warfare.
Yeah, soil isn't just dead dirt. It is a highly competitive ecosystem. When you plant specific cover crops like certain legumes, their root systems secrete unique compounds into the earth.
Oh.
And these compounds foster the growth of beneficial bacteria and antagonistic fungi that actively compete with or even attack the Fusarium spores.
Wait, really? So by changing the cover crop, you're changing the biological army in the soil?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely suppresses the pathogen's ability to dominate the root zone.
So you aren't trying to chemically nuke the soil. You're just introducing stronger competitors to crowd the Fusarium out. That makes total sense.
It's biological control at its finest.
Very cool.
Oh.
Now, the study also outlines a few other critical cultural practices. One is maintaining a safe planting distance from old, diseased stumps when putting in new palms.
Yeah, you have to do that. The fungus treats those old stumps as an incubator. If you plant a young, vulnerable seedling right next to an infected stump, the roots will quickly intersect with the absolute highest concentration of spores in your plot.
Makes sense. And there's also a major warning in the study about mulching. I know we often talk about recycling organic matter, but the scientists emphasize that you should never use spent bunch stalks as mulch if Fusarium is present in your region.
Never, because spent bunch stalks retain a lot of moisture and organic tissue. If the fungus is present, these stalks become a perfect breeding ground.
So spreading them around the base of your healthy trees is...
It's essentially hand-delivering the pathogen to your crop. You're feeding the fungus and giving it a protected environment to multiply right on top of your root systems.
Wow, so definitely avoid that. The final immediate tip for Fusarium is applying potassium. I need to understand the mechanism here, though. How does a standard fertilizer help a tree fight a lethal fungus?
Potassium actually plays a very specific role in plant defense. It physically thickens the epidermal cell walls of the roots.
Oh, so making it mechanically harder for the fungus to penetrate the tissue.
Exactly. And furthermore, potassium regulates the stomata.
The stomata are the tiny pores on the leaves, right, that control water loss.
Right. Because Fusarium attacks the water transport system, a palm with optimal potassium levels can manage its internal water much more efficiently, which basically helps it survive the plumbing blockage longer.
So it's chemical armor and hydration management all in one.
It really is. Though the study does clearly state that while these cultural practices protect your current standing crop, the ultimate long-term solution is planting disease-resistant bread seeds.
Yeah, it takes years to cycle a plot, but resistant genetics are the only permanent fix.
Cultural practices buy you time and protect your income today. Genetics protect your farm tomorrow.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered threats in the wood and threats in the soil. Now we move to a pathogen that weaponizes the weather itself.
Yeah, this one is brutal.
We're looking at a disease triggered by high rainfall and humidity, Phytophthora bud rot.
Right, Phytophthora. This is caused by a water-loving pathogen that targets the most sensitive, vital part of the palm, the soft, newly forming tissue of the spear leaves in the bud.
So instead of slowly degrading wood or blocking water,
It causes a rapid, putrid rot of the new growth. And without a functioning bud, the palm just cannot produce new leaves or fruit.
man, and the economic fallout detailed in the study is staggering. Like, this isn't just about a farmer losing a few trees. This pathogen threatens entire regional economies, rural job security, and biodiversity.
Oh, absolutely.
The researchers cite an outbreak in Colombia back in 2013 where this specific disease destroyed over 35,000 hectares of productive oil palm in a single year.
And the cascading effects of an event that size are just devastating.
I can't even imagine.
Right. When 35,000 hectares of production shut down overnight, rural investments completely dry up. Processing mills close, local jobs are wiped out, and communities lose their primary income.
It's a disaster.
And tragically, to replace the lost crop and reclaim their livelihoods, farmers are often forced to clear new, diverse forest land. So the environmental footprint of this disease goes far beyond the plantation borders.
Yeah, the biodiversity hit is massive. I was reading the section on how it spreads, and it is terrifying.
Yeah.
It doesn't just rely on wind blowing spores around, it actively uses the rain as a vehicle.
Yes, the rain splash.
Right. When that spear leaf rots, the necrotic tissue produces millions of spores. When heavy rains hit, the water washes those spores straight down the spear leaf, pooling at the base.
And from there, the physical impact of the rain droplets splashing into those infected pools catapults the spores into the air and onto neighboring palms.
Well,
And then the high humidity keeps the spores alive, and the continuous rain acts as an accelerated transport system. A localized infection of just 3 or 4 trees can explode into a massive regional outbreak in a matter of weeks during the wet season.
it operates almost like a wildfire, but fueled by water instead of dry brush. The wetter it gets, the faster it consumes the plantation. So what actionable advice does the 2022 study offer for the smallholder who is staring down a wet season?
The very first step is environmental management. You absolutely must manage your grove's drainage.
Okay, because of the humidity.
Yes, the pathogen requires a highly humid microclimate to thrive and germinate. If you have standing water in your plantation, evaporation keeps the humidity around the trees dangerously high.
Makes sense.
So clearing drainage ditches and ensuring water flows out of your plot rapidly drops the ambient humidity, making the environment hostile to the spores.
Okay, so dry it out. What's the second step?
The second step relies on chemical control, specifically a treatment called Bordeaux mixture, which contains copper oxychloride.
Right, the study mentioned that. The scientists found this specific fungicide completely stops the fungal growth.
It does. When you spray copper oxychloride, you aren't just giving the plant a chemical wash. The copper ions actively bind to the proteins and enzymes within the Phytophthora spores.
So it attacks the spores directly.
Exactly. The copper essentially paralyzes the enzymes the spore needs to germinate and penetrate the leaf tissue. It acts as a preventative shield.
Preventative being the key word there.
Very key. The timing is critical. Because this pathogen relies on rain, you have to apply the copper barrier before the heavy monsoons or wet seasons set in. If you wait until the rain is actively splashing spores across the canopy, the disease will outpace your ability to spray.
Which transitions us perfectly into our final major threat.
Let's hear it.
Well, Phytophthora relies on heavy rain as a vehicle to slide into the soft tissue, right? Our final disease, however, uses a living lockpick to break into your palms. We are talking about an insect vector.
Yes, Pestalotiopsis leaf spot.
That's a mouthful.
It is, and the damage from this pathogen is highly visible and deeply detrimental to yield. It causes the green leaflets to turn a sickly gray and become very brittle, essentially killing the plant's ability to photosynthesize.
So by destroying the solar panels of the tree?
It plummets the photosynthetic capacity, which drops yields by roughly 40%.
Wow. And in real numbers, a 40% drop translates to losing about 18 to 20 metric tons per hectare. It is a massive financial blow.
Truly massive.
But the mechanics of how this fungus attacks are unique. I like to think of this fungus as a burglar waiting outside a house.
Ooh, another analogy. I like it.
Yeah, so the thick, waxy outer layer of a healthy palm leaf, the cuticle, is like a locked door. And the Pestalotiopsis fungus is too weak to break that door down on its own. It needs someone else to smash a window.
And the entity smashing the window is the insect vector. The scientists identified Lepidoptera larvae, specifically a type of lace bug, as the primary culprit.
Right, these caterpillars and bugs live on the canopy and feed directly on the leaflets.
Yeah, and as they chew, they create thousands of microscopic feeding wounds across the foliage.
To break the window.
Exactly. And once that window is broken, the fungus doesn't need to work hard at all. The spores land on those open wounds and bypass the plant's tough outer defenses completely.
Right.
The fungus colonizes the exposed internal tissue, rapidly turning those tiny little bug bites into massive dead zones or lesions that consume the entire leaf. It is a highly coordinated tag team attack.
So the strategy to protect your yield is to basically break up the partnership. You have to remove the lockpick.
Exactly.
And the study lays out exactly how to do this by controlling the insect vector. But they specify using insecticides that are absorbed through the roots rather than just spraying the canopy. Why is root absorption so critical here?
Well, it comes back to systemic protection versus contact protection.
Okay.
If you just spray a contact insecticide on the leaves, the next heavy rain will wash a significant portion of it right off. The bugs will just return.
Which wastes your time and money.
Exactly. But if you apply a systemic insecticide to the root zone, the palm absorbs it and pulls it up through its vascular system into the leaves.
Oh, wow. So the entire leaf becomes toxic from the inside out.
Precisely. It provides long-lasting, weather-resistant protection. When the lace bugs take a bite, they ingest the systemic insecticide and die.
And if the bugs die, there are no feeding wounds.
Right. And if there are no feeding wounds, the fungus remains locked outside the waxy cuticle, completely unable to infect the tree.
That is brilliant, but the study also mentions that you can't rely purely on the insecticide, right? You have to tackle the environment the fungus loves, because Pestalotiopsis thrives in high humidity and dense, stagnant air.
Yeah, you must integrate pruning and spacing into your routine. Removing severely infected leaves immediately removes millions of active spores from the canopy.
Just get them out of there.
Right. Furthermore, increasing the planting distance when putting in new trees allows wind to flow freely between the palms.
So you trim back the surrounding tall weeds and keep the canopy open. If the air is moving, the leaves dry faster after a rain.
Exactly.
Keep the air moving, keep the leaves dry, and keep the bugs off.
You've got it. Understanding the specific mechanism of each disease dictates your operational strategy. You just cannot fight a soil-borne fungus the same way you fight an insect-vectored leaf spot.
Let's do a quick recap then, to solidify how understanding these 4 distinct vectors puts the power back in your hands.
Sounds good.
So if the vector attacks the structural wood, like BSR, you look from above using remote sensing to catch the internal water stress early.
Right.
If the vector is hiding in the soil, like Fusarium, you manage your old stumps, manipulate the soil microbiome with cover crops, and fortify the plant with potassium.
Spot on.
If the vector weaponizes the water, like Phytophthora, you improve your ground drainage to drop humidity and apply copper-based fungicides to paralyze the spores. And finally, if the vector is a living insect, like with Pestalotiopsis, you use root-absorbed systemic insecticides to stop the bugs from opening the door for the fungus.
That's the playbook.
You are no longer just reacting to symptoms, you are defending with agricultural strategy.
And as we wrap up this analysis, I actually want to leave you with a broader thought to consider regarding your specific plantation.
Okay?
We talked extensively today about how environmental conditions, rainfall, humidity, soil competition drive these outbreaks. As global weather patterns continue to shift, bringing unusually heavy rains to historically dry areas or extended droughts to wet regions, how might that alter your local battlefield?
That's a huge question.
Right. Could a change in your local climate suddenly invite waterborne spores or new insect vectors into a valley that was previously safe? The pathogens are always adapting to the environment.
It is a vital reminder that farming is a dynamic science. You have to stay vigilant and watch the changing weather patterns just as closely as you watch the soil in the canopy. Remember to visit our AI farming assistant at cropdrive.ai to learn more on how to increase your oil palm yields and incomes. Thanks for listening.